Oh, good. Yes, 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 yes.
Hi, David.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Although we're inclined to celebrate the one that comes in February.
I was just going to say, which year is it this in February?
Year of the Tiger.
Tiger, all right.
Yeah. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. I started out and I got down to the connector and there were cars backed up as far as I could see. And it was essentially blocked right there, on 82 also. So I didn't know what was going on. I didn't want to risk it. So
Yeah, that was wise. The bridge may have been stuck.
yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
Hey, good
Morning,
morning.
Adam.
Morning.
How are
Hey,
you
Adam.
guys?
It's a Zoom collection this morning.
It is a Zoom collection. I don't have to wear a mask. I wear it everywhere else, but today I escape. How you doing, Adam?
Good, hanging in there, hanging in there.
Well, from your text, I gather it's not pleasant at work.
A little busy, could you imagine?
I
Yeah,
can't imagine.
yeah. Tons of people,
Yep.
so
Well, with so much staff out, that's really hard.
that's been the big challenge. Every single day it's like, 4 or 5 people out of 10 are out.
Oh,
You know, so
God.
you're like, oh man.
Spending a
I mean,
lot of
that's
time
so
on the,
true. My girlfriend's a nurse at the Hartford in the NICU, and they usually need 20 nurses. They've been working on 12.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about right. So, but we're getting through it one day at a time.
yep. Well, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And here's Bill, almost.
Adam, did you find a roommate?
I did actually, yeah.
Oh, good.
Nice guy. He's a ninth grade English teacher.
I'm
Ah,
glad it worked out.
So
In New Haven?
no, she teaches at a magnet school in I think New Britain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So kind of just up the road.
morning,
I did a lot of
Bill.
volunteering at the schools in New Haven in my day. I was just curious.
Actually, so I think he's got a kind of couple, snow days out of COVID concerns here. I think they were supposed to go back to school from their Christmas, holiday break yesterday, and that got canceled. So, and he was saying that the governor doesn't want them to do online learning, really trying to emphasize in-person teaching. So they were given the option that they could do an online day, but it would not count towards their required 180 days of school.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, obviously everyone said like, well, we're not going to do that.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah. So I think he's got a couple free days off here while I figure out what the next game plan is.
Well, he's got a nice place to spend them.
Exactly.
Are you with us, Mr. Bynum?
I am trying to get organized here.
I see.
The continual effort against entropy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're it. Joanne is ill and not able to join us. Richard is still working with the videos, but he's been tied up with a new full-time job in Rhode Island, and adult children having some difficulties we've been trying to help them with. So he's a little tied up at the moment, but he's still with us, even though we don't see him.
All right.
Good. So how are things going? Did you get a lot of practice in over the holidays? That's wishful thinking on the part of a teacher.
I wish I could say I did, David.
I can honestly say it wasn't devoid of practice.
Well, that's great.
Same here, yeah. Mostly normal.
Oh, good. So any questions arising that you want me to address today?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Well, we're going to actually, I'm going to start with a note here about breathing, and then we're going to look at a number of the alignments and work on small numbers of those at a time, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, rather than trying to do it all at once. So in breathing, obviously, you've been taught how to breathe from the diaphragm, the front of the belly, the sides of the belly, the kidneys, the lower back, the upper back, and the upper lungs. But how long do you need to practice to learn how to breathe from your diaphragm so that you don't have to think about it anymore? It will do what it does, and you will recognize if your diaphragm is not doing what it should do, because as a result, anywhere else in your body is not breathing well. If your diaphragm is not breathing, then the rest of it's not going to work well either. So next, you're really going to have to look at how you translate what's happening with your diaphragm to all these other forms of breathing. And you want your breathing to go very slowly. For those of you who are in the first year of GODS and have really been following the meditation part of it, you might want to take the way that you do breathing there and introduce that into GODS. But until you can do all of the basic 6 parts of the breathing from the diaphragm to the upper lungs, or at least from the diaphragm to the upper back, you don't really want to be trying to incorporate other forms of breathing into GODS. You do have to have the breathing so that you can get a very even chi flow inside your body, even if you are not meditating and dissolving, because you are trying not to get short of breath and wheezing. There is no holding of the breath in GODS. So you have to use every trick that you can think of to get your breathing to become smooth. From the breathing, you're eventually going to be able to extract chi. Now, breathing is not chi, but in the beginning, at least get the breathing so that you are preparing yourself to go to that next step of not breathing air, but breathing the sense of chi. So just a thought about that this morning. So I am recording, by the way, since nobody reminded me this morning.
Yeah, we don't have Joanne.
So proper alignments make sure that you neither block your chi from moving through that part of your body, and it makes sure you don't dissipate the energy from a joint. For example, if you did something wrong with your elbow when you're trying to get your chi to go from your wrist to shoulder, it could literally dissipate out your elbow. So it's not getting a clean flow that circulates throughout your body, but you actually are dissipating it. Second, it will cause some strain on the biomechanical nature of the human body. But the biggest thing is that you never want to block or dissipate your chi. Now, one of the things that go with this is that your feet will ideally remain stable on the floor without shifting around. Part of what that means is that the arch is slightly lifted, not flat, but slightly lifted. And then you have all the points on the circumference around your foot evenly putting pressure on the floor. And So we're not addressing the subtle shift of the weight that also is in here, and we'll talk about that later. Also, you want to have your armpits stay open and do not collapse or shut down. Well, for women, I've here we have a special note for women, but none of you are women, so simply a passing note that, of course, women have breasts and they have to be careful not to touch their breasts with their hands, which means that sometimes they have to go around them and then come back into the alignment, back into the middle of the body. So this can become really important because part of the skill of maintaining the flow of energy through the left and right channels is having the arms aligned with them. Under no circumstance should your arms touch your flesh anywhere, whether it's a breast, a chest, or any other place. Your arms do not touch your flesh and ideally are at least about a fist distance away from your body. What this does is allow the etheric chi that's in your body to circulate as smoothly as it can. When you close down your armpits or when you touch your body, that interferes with the etheric energy within your body. But note here that we're not using the etheric energy around the body at the moment. Everything that you're doing now is strictly happening internally, below your skin. So what I want you to do is to stand up and at the moment, just do 6 repetitions of 1, 2, and 3, and really focus on your feet, your armpits, and keeping your hands at least a fist width away from the body. Okay. Does that raise any questions for anyone?
Maybe it should have.
Okay, so nothing on that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So this next one, I would have raised as a comment after watching you do the first one. Your elbow tips are always seeking to be perpendicular, pointing to the floor. But you obviously can't do that in some of these motions. But you can get your elbows to face, I'm sorry, but if you can't get your elbows to face all the way to the ground, then what you want to do, if they are out to about 45 degrees, is you want to feel the tip of your elbow pressing the ground. What you do not want is the sense that your elbow is connected to whatever is in the lower part of, come on, David, what you do not want is the sense that your elbow is not connected to whatever is in the lower part of your body or your feet. So perpendicular is the ideal position, but some movements will not allow that. Recognize the difference between out to the side and slightly down. So, for instance, in movement one, when you begin, you're immediately rotating those elbows down, not here, here. And when they come back, they're going to spread a little, but they don't go to here. They continue to try to press down to the earth. So you're constantly trying to find, how do I keep my elbows pointing down, not out? Whatever is in the lower part of your body, so perpendicular, I said that already. Recognize the difference between out to the side and slightly down. Even though they still are somewhat to the side, you need that compression making the elbow face to the floor. So just do, at the moment, movements 1 and 2, just to practice this a little bit. And just do 6 repetitions. You don't have to do a whole lot, but really think about where those elbows are. And of course, you're trying to do the first alignments also. Okay, anybody have a question there? I saw some improvement in those movements as you focused on that.
So, yes, and when we're extending out, the elbows are still down a bit, then we aren't going as straight as I have been going.
Yeah, you're really you're always trying to get the elbows to go down. Absolutely. So I don't know if this is if you can see this here. So as you're going out, they're going down. You're not letting them release back. They're seeking to go to the floor. Yep. The other thing I might just mention that goes along with that is really being aware that in where you're bending and extending in movement one, and I'm turning sideways to you because I think maybe you can see this a little more easily. So at this point, remember that you have, in the very beginning, you're going to bend, which means the elbows bend, the wrist contracts, the fingers bend, everything is bent so that it can slowly straighten all the way through that extension of the fingers. And then it's going to bend all the way through until you get back down to the bottom. And then it starts to extend and extends and extends and extends and out. And then bends in. So trying to keep that clear, the distinction there about where you're bending, where you're extending, and not losing that. Anybody have a question in there? Okay. The elbow point is really important one, that you really be aware of that. You have to find how you can keep the elbow pointing downward. 45 degrees is fine because you can still get that sense of of pressing the elbow down when it's at 45 degrees. But when it goes beyond that, then it begins to extend in the wrong direction. So in movement 2, you're going to be working on the qua squat. You simply want to make sure that your qua folds, that it doesn't stay still and you move your upper body. It has to fold down, like folding a piece of paper. So just really being aware that in movement 2, you have those two different things happening. You have the fold, just a basic fold, but you also have the bend of the body, which is what is the distinction between just simply a qua fold going straight down and straight up and a qua squat, both actions occurring and coming up. So just do movement 2, because that's the squat is our focus at the moment. So just trying to be really clear about the squat. And one of the things that's important as you make the transition from 1 to 2, and in each of the movement 2s, is that you want the squat to be something that relaxes and releases. So if, as you are going down, this is as far as your body releases, then that's it. That's as far as you go. On the other hand, if you are more open and it is natural for you to do it, and that squat goes on down, it could be much, much, much lower. But you have to make that be where you release to, where you relax to, not where you force it to be. Okay? So just play with movement 2 for a minute. Make sure your unfolding goes all the way to the point where your palms face the sides. And remember connecting the Laogong points at the bottom and then the point in the wrists. Make sure you keep the armpits open. Make sure that you equalize the bend and the fold. So in other words, you're not bending over more than you're squatting down, or the reverse of that. Okay, relax for a minute. Anybody have a question on that?
I don't think so.
What?
No.
Yeah, when we're coming up and we come up to the point where we start our exhale, at that point, we've also unfolded a bit. Is that right? Unfolded and unsquatted. In
So,
other words, I know that is the breath transition a little bit different from the unfolding?
no. So as you begin to rise, you're beginning to exhale. And you're exhaling all the way to this point. And then you're inhaling all the way through the connection of the Laogong points to the wrist, and then exhaling. Okay, Bill?
Okay.
So one of the things I noticed, just you want not to have the hands too far separated. That's when you're connecting the Laogong points. It's not necessary to maintain the fist width between the hands. And as a matter of fact, if you allow them to be a little bit closer together, a couple of inches apart, that energetic connection between the Laogong points will be stronger. So that's one point where you don't need to keep that fist width space between the flesh. Okay, any other questions? Nope, okay. In movement 5, you start having effectively a lot of what's in the Kwa fold. Also in movement 5, you're going to have to condense your body and then from that condensed position, you're going to actually stretch up and down. So the difficulty with movement 5 is that it's a Kwa fold. You're actually going here in terms of the physical movement. You're not doing the Kwa squat. And that's particularly counterintuitive at the beginning of that movement. So if you start with the end of movement 4, you are condensing, closing things about 30%. And then as you go on down a little, the hands cross and come up. And then you rise. And that movement is smaller in 5, is smaller than it was in 1 or 4, where you were also doing a qua fold. So you have that condensing, intensifying the energy, and then that movement similar to what we did a little earlier in 2, but now it's a smaller movement, but it's still just a qua fold. So try that.
Okay.
Unless you have a question. So Bill Nagel, you can let your arms keep going. Let your arms extend all the way out.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Nick, are you aware we're working on movement 5?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So Adam, again, don't let your body get stuck by rising too quickly.
Okay.
Better. Okay, relax for a moment. This is a particularly difficult movement. We're going to come back to 5 again in a minute, so I'll talk a little bit more about it in a moment. So in movements 5 and 6, actually, I would have to say in 1 through 6, but the original lesson was focused on 5 and 6, that you're really focusing on the beginning of the spine stretch. Very simply, what we're talking about here is that when your arms go down, as they sink, the vertebrae in the back of your spine open up. And then when you come up, the vertebrae in the front of your spine open. So this is a difficult posture because of its points of transition. So the point of opening up starts partway up the body, wherever the point is that you have raised the energy as high as you can at the moment in your body, ideally eventually to the crown of the head. And then from that point through here, you are actually sending the energy down the side channels and into the center. And then with this part of the movement, you're sending it up the center channel to the crown of the head and out to the sides and down. So it's getting those two. This is not a difficult point of transition. This one always seems to be for everyone. And the point about the spine, if you've done opening the energy gates of your body, then you've done the Taoist spine stretch and would have a better understanding perhaps of this. But what's happening is that you are opening very, very tiny spaces between the vertebrae. And you're opening them first with one part of the movement in the back of the spine, and then maintaining those spaces, opening a little bit of space in the front of the vertebra. And it's easy for us to be aware of the back because we can feel the back of our spine even. It's no mystery to us. The front, unless you've looked at pictures of anatomy and pictures of the skeleton, you haven't seen the front of the spine. You don't know exactly what that is. So it takes some time of practice and intent before you begin to actually feel the front of the spine. You can feel the back of the spine much more easily. So from here, you're actually opening those spaces in the back of the spine. And here you're opening the spaces in the front of the spine. So in movement 5, that's really easy, or not so easy to see. In 6, it gets much clearer, because in 6, when we reverse that movement, now we're back to transition points that make a little more sense to us initially. Eventually, they both will work. But focusing just on, for a little bit here in doing 5 and 6, do 6 each of 5 and 6, and just see if you can feel a sense of the spine opening in the back and the front. Okay, anyone have a question there?
Not a question, David, but interestingly, I could six work better, as you suggested it would. But I felt the front of my spine more easily on 5 than the back of my spine, which surprised me.
Ah, interesting. Well, good. Good. So, just a reminder to remember that you are closing, sinking a little here as you bend all the way to the point that your arms come up, and then you're straightening the body all the way to this point. So just being clear about those points of transition. Sometimes when I was first working on this, I remember that in order to be clear about it, I would talk myself through this, saying that the energy was going into the central channel and rising up the central channel, going into the side channels and down to the qua, into the center and up to the crown of the head, out and down. So just talking it sometimes as a practice helped me to clarify what each of those movements was doing, and to begin to tune in to feeling that. Since of course that's part of what what we really want to accomplish here. So in movements 5 and 6, there should be some consideration that your spine as well as your qua are joined together, telling your arms how to move. You're not moving your arms and then moving your spine and your qua. You're moving your spine and your qua to cause your arms to move. So you have to be clear about who is the leader and follower. Now, so that some people don't get confused about this, the elapsed space of time between your qua bending and your spine bending, or your qua lengthening and your spine lengthening, is going to be less than a second, a fraction of a second. It just has to happen first. So it doesn't have to be that if you have a leader and a follower, that there has to be space before you start actually moving your body. It's just a very tiny bit. You have to make that connection. Otherwise, what will happen is that you will move your arms and then you'll think about moving your qua. And the fact of the matter is that it is the inside that is causing the outside to happen, not the outside causing the inside. The only time the outside causes the inside to happen is when you're working with your etheric field, which we are not doing yet. So, oh, good. One more time with 5 and 6. And really trying to be clear about that point as you do them. Let your qua and your spine move your arms. So just a reminder that if I take the movement of the body away here in 5, we have the arms bending, 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 bending. Notice that they are coming up the center of the body. And how high they come, really, that depends on you and depends on what you feel in terms of the energy rising up the center of your body. And then it goes out. So from here, you are going down, 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 down. This is this is the confusing part, because the body's going down and the arms are coming up. And there is a disconnect that happens in our mind. And I can see a couple of you really kind of struggling with that issue. So letting go of the need for the arms to be going in the same direction as the body all the time. They don't in this case. So you're actually the body is bending, 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 straightening, 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 straightening. Okay. In 6, the note I would make there is that when the arms come up, they're straightening. And notice that my elbows are down here. And then when you come to this point, those hands connect again, and you could bring the wrists down or you could bring the palms down, but they stay together through the center till you get down to the dantian, and then they go out and up. Okay. Just a couple of notes there. So anyone have a question? So there's a little bit more of this particular teaching, but I'm not going to inflict any more on you today. I'll send you the notes on this. There are a lot of individual pieces that you can work on. Anybody have any particular question at the moment?
No, I don't think so, David. That was a lot to chew on.
It is a lot to chew on.
That's right.
Absolutely. But it's all things that we've covered. I'm just going back and trying to be a little more specific about them and focus them. So, great.
You
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Have fun. Practice.
All right.
Yeah. Good.
Next week.
Nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Good to
Happy
see
New
you
Year.
too, David, and everybody.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Joanne is not here.
Yeah, is she doing okay? Have you heard from her?
I don't, I just got a message this morning that said she was not feeling well and she wasn't going to be able to come even on Zoom. So, however, I think I'm going to throw at you what I was going to throw at the two of you anyway.
Okay. Sure.
Do you have any, however, do you have any questions in your Wu style, and how is what you're working on coming?
Things are coming along. Still working a lot with just making sure that those knees are good. Working on the C-spine and just trying to get more of a sense of energy coming up through the legs.
Yeah.
Not really leaving that behind,
Yeah.
So more progress. It feels like I don't know how to describe it. Almost like it doesn't take much practice to let things simmer for a while, and then the next time I come back to it, it's a little better.
Yep.
So I think what we're doing in Gods is really slowly opening things up energetically in the form.
Yeah. So the thing that I was going to look at today is condensing in the form.
Okay.
Um, because sometimes when we've flowed through the form, I have said here and there condense. I don't know that I've been always specific about all of them, and I'm not actually going to try to do that today, but I was going to talk about two different places where, to my mind, good places to begin to try to experience condensing in the form. So the first one is the difference between grasping sparrow's tail left and right, because we have a condense between them. So what happens when you have a condense in the form is that the next movements are not as large, but they are fuller of energy and power. So when see if you can see this on Zoom. So when we begin, we have the full movement here, but then as you come back, here we have a condense. And now these movements are a little smaller. It's the same movement, but the energy is packed. I don't know, could you see the difference there?
Yeah, I can see the difference in the size of the movement. Yeah.
What you can't see is the difference in what's happening inside. So it's that same thing that's happening in 5 and 6 in Gods, in that when you condense, you're condensing roughly a third of the energy, so that now your opening and closing is all taking place in the remaining 70%. I don't know, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I guess the question I have is, so you close that 30% and then everything else happens in the remaining 70%. But
Yep.
do you do anything else or do anything more to create that more compact energy? You know, because I get a sense of being able to close that 30% and maintain that, hold that close, but it doesn't feel like, because I'm closing that 30%, that the energy is necessarily condensed, like it's thicker or more viscous. You know what I mean? It just feels like
Yeah,
shut down the door 30, a little ways.
Yeah, no, I think I do understand what you're saying, because I think I went through the same question at some point. And actually you're not doing anything else,
Okay.
because ideally the condensing is what has already done it.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's not that you have to do anything else.
Okay.
The question really becomes, or the issue becomes, are you really condensing?
Okay.
So if you have condensed and packed that energy into a smaller space, it's the same energy. You have made it possible for it to have more power.
Okay, I think
Um,
I get what you're saying, kind of like, putting your finger at the end of the hose. The
Yeah.
same amount of water coming out, but now it's more forceful because you sort of
Right.
closed off.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The other place that's kind of a good place to begin to look at this is Wave Hands.
Hmm.
Because you have the choice of condensing or not condensing every time you transition from one side to the other. So you could condense each time after the first one, because you don't condense the first one, or
Right.
or not. So that's that's something you can play with as you're doing it.
Yeah, okay. So but the first one we always do without condensing.
Yeah, the first one, because you're coming out of down and under.
Yeah,
There's really no point of condensing there. So you establish what the full possibility of that movement is. I don't know why I did it away from the camera. But then when you come into here, here's where the condense occurs. And now this movement, instead of being this movement, it becomes this movement. And the feeling you're looking for here is that actually has more power than the bigger movement. That it's
Right.
not the size of the movement that makes the difference. It's the amount of energy that you're packing into it.
so if you were to continue with that, you wouldn't like condense again, you would just maintain that.
You actually
being condensed from.
actually the way to play with this in Cloud Hands is that each one is a separate piece, and you could either condense again and keep the condensing going, or you could not condense, still have the movement in the center, but not condense and let the movement enlarge.
Okay,
So it kind of becomes what is it you want to do there? What's happening? Again, you can start playing with what's going on here. Is this a place where I'm just guiding this force past me, or has this lined up so that I can really throw with it?
okay,
So you could go through that and condense all of them after the first one, or you could condense one and then not do two or three and then do it a couple.
yeah,
So
okay.
it could be your choice as you play through it.
And so if you're doing a flow of the form, as you keep coming back to Wave Hands, you shouldn't worry about repeating what you did the first time, just
No,
whatever you're doing in that moment.
yeah, it's right.
Okay.
Exactly. It's that moment. Always.
Cool.
Good. Well, that'll give you something to play with.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
So, gotta hope things ease up at the hospital.
Yeah, they will eventually. I think the
Yeah.
next 2 to 3 weeks will probably be a little busy. And then hopefully at that point, things start getting better. But
At least
we'll see.
I gather that the intensity of the illness of people is not as severe.
Only sort of. It's partially true.
Ah,
It's true for people who are vaccinated.
Uh-huh.
But about 75% of the COVID patients in the hospital are not vaccinated.
oh,
And for them, it is just as severe.
huh.
Every single day there's, another handful more people on ventilators in the ICU. So it's hard to say that it's not as severe, because there's still a lot of people pretty sick with it. And we're at a point now where we have, around 5 or so people dying from it a day. So,
Oh, God.
I mean, doesn't help those ones, right? It's severe enough. So,
Yep. Yep.
it's still severe enough that people need to take it seriously. I mean, especially those who aren't vaccinated,
Oh,
Um, so, and it seems to be spreading much more readily
Yeah.
than before. Even people who are vaccinated are still seeming to catch it or spread it
yep.
despite having boosters and everything. So, I don't know. I think it's time for most people to just kind of bunker down again,
Yep.
for a couple weeks. I think a lot of what we're seeing is just the craze from the holidays and people gathering and
Yep.
everything from Thanksgiving through New Year's, right? Everyone's getting together and, trying to be social and stuff. But at the same time, everything's moving inside. You can't really go out. So,
And,
we'll-
and if the idiots would only get vaccinated.
well, I mean,
Uh,
that would help. That would certainly help. I mean, the big problem is the hospital doesn't have the luxury that we had the first time around where we didn't have the other patients.
yeah.
So, before we were full of COVID and that was it. We just had COVID patients and we had a hospital full of COVID patients. Well, now we have a hospital full of patients who need care anyways, and we have a hospital full of COVID patients and
Uh,
we're just running out of room. I mean, we
well,
have 300 patients in the ED this week at
Oh.
any given time, which is larger than all of Middlesex Hospital. So, like, what do you do with that, right? And about 100 of them have COVID, and there's nowhere to put them. They're just sitting on a stretcher in the hall right next to everyone else. We put a mask on them and hope for the best. Hope you don't get your neighbor sick.
Oh.
Because there's nowhere else to put them. There's nothing to do with them.
God, frustrating.
Stay out of the hospital at all costs if you can avoid it, Dave.
I will.
Yeah, it's not a good time to need to be in the hospital at all for anything.
Well, I canceled my dental appointments on Friday.
Actually, I canceled my dental appointment for today. So yeah.
I'm debating. I'm supposed to see my electrophysiologist in about a week, and I'm debating whether to do that.
Yeah, it's tough. If you can safely get away with delaying stuff a little bit, it might be worth doing. Because I think it's going to go over pretty quick. I think in a month, it's going to be a very different picture.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's a better picture, not a worse picture, but I think it's going to improve pretty quick. I think it's just a big surge from the holidays and,
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
And I think a lot of people are seeing kind of what the fallout from the holidays is at this point and starting to reevaluate what they're doing.
I hope so.
So hopefully
Yep.
that helps, but
Do you have the day off?
no, I'm actually going in today.
Ah.
So yeah, that's what, I actually have my scrubs on, so heading in right after this.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go.
All right, David. Well, good seeing you. Glad everyone's healthy.
Good to see you and good luck to you and
Thank you.
hang in there.
You too. I'll see you next week.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.